Welcome back. If it has joined us to watch the news at 10, coming to you live from Lagos, a reminder of our major stories. The Federal High Court in Lagos orders still tonight, South and Southeast governors hold follow-up meeting in Enugu, having agreed on the restructuring of Nigeria. Governors of Benue and Ebonyi states make a firm decision, agree to resolve their boundary disputes latest by November. More rainfall in Lagos today. Some residents of Lekki and Victoria Garden City are forced to stay indoors. Iraqi authorities are celebrating the recapture of Mosul from the Islamic State militants. For more on our top stories and others, please visit our websites, channelstv.com and youtube.com/channelsweb. Log on to m.channelstv.com to watch us on your mobile device, or download the Channels TV app for Android, iOS and Windows devices from their respective stores. The Channels TV and Channels 24 app will give you access to news and updates. You also have access to the eyewitness feature, so you can send us pictures of perhaps the flood in your area. The eyewitness feature can be used to share those pictures, videos, or other news of happenings around you. Just install the app, then tap and swipe to reveal the menu and follow the instructions. The level of infrastructure deficit in the country continues to be cause for concern as road users face tedious attempts at getting to their destinations. Businesses are recording losses in man-hour and investment, and the nation's economy is burdened with dwindling oil revenue, which appears to be getting worse. Our correspondent, Chris Lems, reports.
Infrastructure such as roads, airports, seaport, power and telecommunications are critical requirements for any nation aspiring to play in the league of the world's biggest economies. While Nigeria, the world's most populous black nation, envisions that position by 2020, the state of infrastructure in the country leaves much to be desired. Blessed with about 200,000 kilometers of road networks, it is, however, saddening to know that a greater percentage of these roads, which also cater to about 90% of our freight, is in deplorable condition. A recent case being the Mokwa-Jeba Road, as well as the Michika Bridge collapse.
What we are seeing today, the federal government must come to the aid of this particular road. The work is slow, and they need to do more.
The effect of this decaying infrastructure has raised dust in different quarters concerning what the government might be doing to remedy the situation. Only recently in Kaduna, petroleum tanker drivers came together to express their grievances and appeal to the government for quick intervention.
We expect from the National Assembly is to release money to the Honorable Minister to let him perform. Because what the tanker driver witnessed in this country, on Nigeria highways, is very, very serious. It's very tedious. You see the tanker driver are spending 2 weeks inside bush.
Various reports have shown that there is a huge infrastructure deficit that will require about 3 trillion naira annually to close the gap. At a recent report in Lagos on finance and development of capital project, Emerging Solution, the president of the Nigerian Institute of Quantity Surveyors offered a possible way out of the situation.
The private sector is expected to become increasingly involved in the creation of financing solutions to develop Nigeria's frail infrastructure. Progressively, project finance is being recognized as the best method of developing capital projects in Nigeria, despite all the associated risks and challenges of volatile economic activities.
At the center of good governance and public welfare is adequate infrastructure. And whatsoever it will require to fix these daunting challenges must be explored by the government of the day so as to effectively deliver on campaign promises upon which they were elected into offices. Chris Illems, Channels Television News.
The infrastructure deficit on our roads has gone from bad to worse, and despite the efforts by the federal and state governments, many of our roads today have become almost impassable. So how can this be redressed? I'm being joined on the news at 10 now by the Executive Director of Infrastructure Bank, Mr. Daudu, who's in our studio in Abuja. Mr. Daudu, it's great to have you on the news at 10 tonight. Thanks for joining us. You've watched the news reports. You've seen the bad roads we have in the country. They're in almost every state. You've also seen the ordeal that transporters have to go through and how much we're losing economically. Can we look to the Bank of Infrastructure for any hope or any remedy?
Thank you, Amarachi. Yes, I mean it's a terrible state of affairs nationwide. As was stated in your report, 90% of freight and passenger movement is done by road in Nigeria today. What the bank is doing and what it is proposing and acting as an advocacy of is involving the private sector more strongly in road development in Nigeria. Even the Nigerian infrastructure master plan, the integrated infrastructure master plan, which was developed by the National Planning Commission and the Ministry of Budget and National Planning, has stated that the infrastructure deficit nationwide needs to be addressed with a public-private sector partnership. And they're looking at maybe 40% of the funding coming from the public sector and 60% coming from the private sector. What we're doing at the Infrastructure Bank is to act as a bridge between those two sectors. We're also acting as a facilitator and a funder of projects such that we do things in a sustainable way, in a way that makes resources better used and better value for money in terms of project delivery.
Well, speaking of project delivery, there's still more roads that still need attention. It's more infrastructure that also still need attention. If you look at other parts of the world where you have the infrastructure bank, take for instance Canada, these banks, they're the ones that do these things so that, you know, at this period of time when we have the rainy season, we're not going through what we're going through. But we seem to be able to talk about the problem. We seem to know what the solution is, but it just seems like the solution is coming much slower than expected.
Yes, I mean, you know, the focus tonight is on road infrastructure, but the infrastructure deficit is obviously much wider than that. In these countries that you're discussing, Canada, the US, the UK, probably about 60% or so of their freight and passenger movement is done by road. Now, what is it that's the difference between those countries and Nigeria, where 90% plus, as was stated in your report, is done by road? What they have is other transportation infrastructure. They have their ports, which are working well. They have aviation, obviously, working well. And what that does is to reduce the pressure on our roads. You know, the development of infrastructure in these countries also didn't take place, you know, in overnight. They have consistently invested over many, many years on infrastructure development in their countries. What we need to do in Nigeria is to take that same approach. We need to invest consistently over a long period of time, such that, you know, delivery can be made and can be sustained. In Nigeria today, on the road sector, for example, we're looking at about 3 trillion per year to develop our roads. Budgetary allocation is probably in the region of 200 billion, of naira. Now, how are we going to make that a gap of 2.8 billion? Well, it's not just by you know, increasing budgetary allocation, as we already know. the government funds are limited. We need to have a better structure to allow private sector funding to come in and to come in quickly, such that projects can be delivered on time, on budget, and in a way that will allow projects to actually conclude and allow our infrastructure gap to be filled.
Well, as you said, 3 trillion naira is required annually. Well, analysts say for the next 10 years for the roads to bridge the gap in infrastructure deficits in Nigeria. So will the Bank of Infrastructure be here for the long run? And do you think this is possible?
Yes, I think it's imminently possible. We're here for the long run. You know, the mission of the bank is to deliver infrastructure in Nigeria in such a way that it can enhance their productivity across the country. You know, if we are able to deliver infrastructure in a sustainable manner, in a way that allows movement of freight and movement of people, we can grow the economy in a sustainable fashion. By growth of economy, we'll also have socio-economic development. And, you know, Nigeria can be a better place for us all to live. The bank has been in existence for 25 years. We're here to stay. And we're here to stay for Nigeria's infrastructure development, achieve goals and objectives.
Mr. Taiwo Daudu, thank you so much for joining us on the News at 10. It's been a pleasure having you on tonight. We're speaking with the Executive Director of Infrastructure Bank, Mr. Taiwo Daudu. And the Sultan of Sokoto, Alhaji Muhammad Syed Abubakar III, says he's committed to working with the health agencies across the country to eradicate polio and other childhood killer diseases in Nigeria. He was speaking at the flag-off of the Sub-National Immunization Plus Days organized by the Sokoto State Primary Healthcare Development Agency. The Sultan appealed to the people to accept the vaccines and the routine immunization program so that they can effectively fight polio and other child killer diseases like measles, diphtheria, whooping cough and tetanus, among others. When the News at 10 returns, Bauchi State strives to improve on healthcare delivery with special interest on primary healthcare. That's the moment. Please join us again.